On March 5th, 1974, 17-year-old Amy Billig vanished while hitchhiking to her dad's office in Coconut Grove, Florida. A few days later, 16-year-old twins who lived in the neighborhood claimed they kidnapped Amy and wanted $30,000, but police discovered this was a hoax and the case went cold. But Amy's mom, Susan, never gave up. She traveled the country chasing down leads. However, soon she started receiving harassing phone calls from a man claiming to have Amy. This went on for 21 years until one day the caller accidentally used his cell phone instead of a payphone, allowing it to be traced back to Henry Blair, a man who had become obsessed with the case but had no connection to Amy, so her disappearance remains unsolved.
I don't think that there's ever been a story that makes me believe in the afterlife as much as this one. And although it's comforting, it's also really disturbing. So let's talk about it. On September 12th, 2008, at 4:22 p.m., a Metrolink commuter train collided head-on with a freight train in the Chatsworth neighborhood of Los Angeles, California. The commuter train was carrying 225 passengers while the freight train was carrying 3, and they hit each other going 83 miles per hour combined. This obviously caused mass casualties, with 25 people dying and 135 others really badly injured. Among the deceased was 49-year-old Charles Peck, who was a customer service agent for Delta Airlines at the Salt Lake City International Airport. Charles was in California for a job interview at a different airport, and this was really exciting to him because this would have been a promotion. And at the time, he was saving up everything he could so that he could marry his fiancée, who lived in California. The two planned to wait to get married until they both lived in the same state. So this job interview meant everything to Charles. So that day, Charles got onto the train and was on his way to his fiancée's house in Westlake Village when the trains crashed into each other. He was sitting in the first passenger car when the crash happened, right at the point of impact, and he died immediately. This happened so suddenly that Charles didn't even know what was happening, and he likely didn't even see it coming. Charles' fiancée was on her way to the train station to pick him up when she heard the breaking news about the crash on the radio. She was with his parents and siblings who also lived in California, so as you can imagine, this was absolutely devastating. Charles' body wouldn't be pulled from the wreckage for another 12 hours, along with many others. But for the first 11 hours of that, his phone kept repeatedly calling his loved ones. In total, his phone called his loved ones 35 times, and it was everyone he loved most. So his sons, who he had from a previous marriage, his siblings, his stepmom, and his fiancé. Every time they answered the phone calls, no one would speak. They could only hear static. And when they would hang up and call back, their calls to him would go straight to voicemail. At this point in time, nobody, not even search and rescue, knew that he had already perished. And with all of these phone calls, his family really thought that he was still alive and just trapped somewhere in the wreckage. So his sons kept telling him when they received his phone calls that they loved him and told him to just hang on because people were coming to get him. Hours and hours would go by, and the day would bleed into nighttime as they waited for any news about Charles. And at 3:28 a.m., the calls officially stopped. His family gave this information to search and rescue, and they were able to pinpoint Charles' exact location through his phone, which led them to the first passenger car. As they combed through what was left of it, they finally found his body, 1 hour after the calls from his phone stopped and 12 hours after the accident. What's crazy is the fact that despite his phone calling his loved ones 35 times, authorities never found it, even though the calls are what ultimately led them to his remains. That's so scary to think about, that even though they traced his phone directly back to him, they still didn't find it. An autopsy confirmed that Charles died on impact, and his body showed no signs that he lived for even a short time after the crash. After an investigation, this crash, which became known as the Chatsworth crash, was found to be caused by a phone, which is really eerie to me as well. It was found that the engineer running the Metrolink commuter train had failed to stop at a red light. This forced the train onto a single track, and coming the opposite way was a Union Pacific freight train who had the right of way, and as a result, they crashed directly into each other. The engineer running the Metrolink commuter train had been texting while on duty. He was texting from the time he left the train station to just moments before the collision, 22 seconds to be exact. And it's crazy that this whole story revolves around a phone in some way. Charles' family believes that the phone calls were a message from Charles himself, letting them know that he's okay and that he didn't suffer. But it's now been 17 years, and whatever caused his phone to send all of those calls after his death remains a mystery.
So check this crazy ass loophole I just went through. I nutted in the condom. Put water in the condom. Okay? Then, you want to take it a step further, put the condom over a light. At that point, you're going to see a homemade lava lamp. Not capping though.
I'm not certain about a lot in life, but one thing I am certain of is how genuinely disturbing this story is, and how you 100% will not sleep tonight because of it. This is a young girl who went missing in Mexico sometime in the 90s, and she was featured on a really popular broadcast called Community Service on Channel 5. This broadcast featured local missing person cases, but once Selena's case popped up, weird things started to happen, causing viewers to panic. What happened to Selena and everything that followed is extremely disturbing, so let's talk about it. So Channel 5 is a Mexican TV station that has been around since the 50s. The channel is aimed at children, with segments airing during commercial breaks on Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon. And while some might not think anything of it, it's actually pretty disturbing when you find out what exactly they're airing for kids to see. So each night, Channel 5 would often air a broadcast called Community Service, which features real local missing person cases. Every time it came on, it would list a ton of missing people, and usually a lot of information and photos would be attached to each case. The goal was to air this in hopes of finding these missing people and bring them home. This is a great way to spread the word on missing people, but some thought it was a little dark to do this on kids' channels, because after all, they are just kids, and these segments were known to be kind of sinister and bleak. But this was supposedly done on purpose to show young kids how scary the world can actually be, and in a way it was meant to teach them to be safe. This all had good intentions, but in 2001, Channel 5 featured a missing persons case that would unintentionally cause mass panic, even to this day. In 2001, Community Service featured the missing persons case of 18-year-old Selena Delgado Lopez, who disappeared on April 22nd. The year she disappeared has never been proven, although it's suggested that she disappeared sometime in the late 90s. What made this case stand out to viewers was this uncanny, poorly lit photo of Selena, and the fact that there was hardly any information about her disappearance besides her name, age, and where she went missing, which was in Mexico City. This was odd because everyone else that was featured on this broadcast had a lot of information and a ton of photos, but Selena's case didn't have any of that. Channel 5 aired Selena's photo and case for years, but it wasn't long until viewers started noticing something strange. Every time Selena's case and photo came on the TV, viewers started to get really uncomfortable and afraid, citing the nature of her photo as incredibly bizarre. Viewers noted how oddly terrified her photo made them feel, as it was super uncanny. Adding to the mystery surrounding this whole phenomenon is the fact that whenever Selena's photo would be featured, the TV channel would freeze and glitch out for a few minutes before the broadcast would abruptly cut to static. Because of the mass panic and strange coincidences like the TV glitching whenever her photo came on the screen, scary urban legends started to spread surrounding Selena and what really happened to her. Some said that Selena was met with a horrible fate and that her spirit haunted Channel 5 whenever her picture showed up on the screen. Others said that her photo was simply cursed. Some even went so far as to say that Selena was not a real missing person and that her uncanny photo was actually created using AI. And this theory was kind of backed up when people started looking into Selena's case and found no public record of her disappearance. It was around the time of Selena's disappearance and feature on Channel 5 that this photo started going around. It's obviously incredibly disturbing, and at the time, no one knew where it came from. Some pointed out the similarities between Selena's face and this one when lined up over each other, and videos about the glitches viewers would experience began circulating, just like this one.
XHGC Canal 5, al servicio de la comunidad. Pedimos ayuda para localizar a Selene Delgado López, de 18 años, se extravió el 22 de abril en la delegación Álvaro Obregón. Selene Delgado López, se ignora su paradero desde el 28 de mayo del año 2000. Selene Delgado López, de 18 años, se extravió el 22 de abril en la delegación Álvaro Obregón.
Although creepy, this photo is actually just a police sketch of Derek Todd Lee, aka the Baton Rouge Slayer. Derek was a serial killer who between 1998 and 2003 terrorized Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas. He killed at least 7 women, and before he was caught, authorities released this composite sketch of him. He was officially arrested and charged for these crimes in 2004, but somehow his composite sketch became associated with Selena's photo, thus fueling these really scary urban legends and stories about her death and disappearance. Like I said earlier, Channel 5 continued to air Selena's case on Community Service for years after the fact, because no one was able to confirm if she was actually a real missing person. And every time they did, viewers would still feel incredibly afraid and uncomfortable, and their TVs would all glitch. And as the years passed, this disturbing experience would remain a mystery, as would Selena's disappearance. Then in 2010, Channel 5 would begin to post some really disturbing photos and videos on Twitter. This is a video they posted. It's so creepy, and although it wasn't created by them, just reposted, no one knows why they randomly started doing this. Their Twitter account would be totally normal during the day, but every night, usually around 3 a.m., they began posting these disturbing videos, and by morning, they would all be deleted. One of the videos they posted had a caption mentioning Selena, and it is really creepy. When employees at Channel 5 were questioned about this, no one knew anything about it. That, in and of itself, is genuinely so scary to me, but then in 2020, Selena's disappearance and the urban legends surrounding it once again resurfaced, and this became known as the Facebook incident. In 2020, a Facebook page of a woman with the exact same name as Selena popped up. It started gaining some traction because users discovered that they had already been added as her friend, even though no one knew her, and none of them sent her a friend request. To their horror, they also discovered that there was no option to unfriend her either. This led people to believe that her profile was haunted and in some way connected to what happened to Selena. This profile was shared thousands of times, and while it is a little creepy, there was actually a really logical explanation for the entire thing. This profile turned out to just be someone with the same name as Selena, and she had really just changed her privacy settings. She removed the add friend option from her profile, and because her page was blowing up and she had no clue why, she privated her account, which is still there to this day. Although a lot about this story is still a mystery, there are a few theories that could explain what's going on with Channel 5 and Selena's disappearance. Theory number one is that Selena is a real missing person, and her lack of information is simply due to the lack of resources back then. There are a lot of missing people in Mexico, especially during that time, so maybe her disappearance was just never followed up on. If that's the case and she is a real missing person, it's extremely sad, and her family deserves answers as to what really happened to her. Cable TV back then wasn't great quality, so that could explain the nature of her photo as well as the glitching and freezing on the channel. It could have really happened, maybe just due to technical issues. Theory number two was that Selena is not a real missing person, and it's been suggested that Channel 5 created her to fuel a fake urban legend in order to scare young viewers into being safe. It could be that this is all a hoax to shed some light on how unsafe the world actually is, and it could very well just be a publicity stunt to get people to watch the broadcast. Either that, or Selena's case and photo was created by someone else with the sole intent of scaring people, and Channel 5 didn't do its due diligence to make sure it was real before airing. That's weird to me though, because they continued airing her story for years after the fact. Some people lean more towards this being a hoax by Channel 5 simply because of the Twitter post in 2010 referencing Selena. Whether the story is true or not, it still gives me full body chills. It's now been 24 years since the story surfaced, but it remains a disturbing mystery to this day.
Oh yeah, one more thing. If y'all see me on Love Island, mind your fucking business, bitch. I'm trying to find love, bitch. Y'all had y'all motherfucking chance.
This is the last known image of a man who vanished in 2011. Hello, true crimers. This is the case of Luc Joly Durocher. Viewer discretion is advised. Luc Joly Durocher was born on June 28, 1990, and he had two sisters, and he grew up in Quebec, in Canada. From a very early age, Luc was a musician. He loved playing the guitar, piano, and he wanted to become a musician. This would end up carrying on into his older life, and he was determined to make it big in the music industry. He asked his sister, if I do make it big, will you be my manager? And she was so excited. She said, yeah, of course. Luc was also a social butterfly. He was a very outgoing guy, and he was the type of person who could make anybody laugh at any point. He was just a really, really funny guy, and he loved to make people laugh. And he had just a really warm personality. And then just one day, he vanished. He lived in Témiscamingue in Quebec, and on March 3rd, 2011, he would be in North Bay, Ontario, which is literally like just across the border there. It's a very, very short distance. Luc would be hanging out with his friends here at this apartment building on 683 Sherbrooke Street. They were just hanging out, having a good time, having some drinks, and they decided that they were going to go to a local bar. That bar is this location here, the Cecil's Eatery and Beer Society. This is footage of Luc and his friends entering Cecil's. This is them inside the doorway getting into Cecil's. But for some reason, he was denied entry into the bar. There doesn't seem to be like a clear-cut answer as to why he was denied, but he ends up going outside and his friends go back into the bar. And this is Luc standing on his own outside at 11:54 p.m. on March 4th, 2011. This is the last image of Luc ever captured. I'm not sure what the situation with the friends was All I know is that Luke was eventually reported missing by his family on March 7th, 2011. So police would search the last location he was known to be at in terms of where he was staying. And there they found his jacket, they found his eyeglasses, and they also found Luke's cell phone in that home. And they confirmed that the last communication from his phone was a text message to his dad at 8:51 p.m. the night he would have vanished. So this is before the friends went out to go to Cecil's. They haven't been able to confirm his entire outfit that night, but they do know for a fact that he was wearing this purple belt on the night he disappeared, which has not been located. And then on March 15th, 2011, a pedestrian would find a debit card here in this location just below me, and this was Luke's bank card. They did check his bank activity, and his account had not been used again since the night he disappeared, and he just withdrew $20 from an ATM. Now, this was the last image of Luke, but this was not the last place he was seen. They discovered that Luke somehow got a ride from someone to a location called Voyager's Inn. There was a bar inside the inn which he was able to gain entry to. Police end up interviewing employees there, and they said that they think they saw Luke leave sometime around 3 a.m. And they believe that Luke got a ride from someone who was also at the bar that night. And that was the last confirmed sighting of Luke. So if you look here, like in this corner, you have the house where he was staying with his friends, you have the Cecil's bar, you have where his debit card was found, all kind of in the same area. And then you have him going way up there, I'm assuming before he dropped his debit card here at Voyager's. Or maybe he dropped the debit card, I'm not sure, I don't know. But obviously, it's a very suspicious situation because a person doesn't just fall off the face of the earth that way. No other sightings of him have ever been reported. So they bring in cadaver dogs. They are searching the waters. They are searching the area around the bar, all the locations he was at that night. They even search his home in Quebec because, again, it wasn't that far away. But they don't find anything. They don't get any hits or anything. Luke, pictured here with his dad, just vanished. He just disappeared into the night. Did something happen at the Voyager Inn? And who did he get a ride with? Have they talked to that person? Have they found out who that person even was? I don't know. There is a very good chance that he met with foul play somehow, some way. Because even with all the extensive searching they've done, they haven't found a single trace of him. Your mind kind of immediately goes to foul play. But somebody somewhere out there has got to know the truth about what actually happened to Luke that night. Perhaps that someone is you. If you have any information on the whereabouts of Luc Joly Durocher and what may have happened to him, please call 705-497-5555. There is a $50,000 reward for any information that helps bring Luke home. If you know something, if you saw something, please do the right thing and say something.
This father formed a really strange relationship with a man who convinced him that his 5-year-old daughter was the reincarnation of someone he used to know. Then the little girl went missing. On January 16, 1973, 5-year-old Anna Waters vanished from her home in broad daylight as she played in her backyard. Anna's mother went to check on her after noticing an eerie quietness, but by the time she stepped outside, Anna was gone. After an unsuccessful search for her, she called police for help. Near the home is a creek that at the time was in its flooding stage, so investigators' first suspicion was that she may have slipped into the waters and gotten swept away. But an extensive search of the creek and its surrounding areas would turn up no sign of Anna. 2 separate people would come forward with a description of a white truck that was driving down the road around the same time of Anna's disappearance. Both witnesses recalled seeing 2 men inside, one described as being much older than the other. On top of that, Anna's brother described an incident that happened about a month before her disappearance when a strange man and a woman had tried to lure young Anna into their car. Things would get even stranger when investigators would look into Anna's father. Anna's father, a man named George Waters, was well known in the community as a doctor. But after Anna's birth, George would begin behaving erratically and was eventually diagnosed with schizophrenia. His family refused to have him hospitalized for treatment because it would mean that George would lose his his license and the right to practice medicine. George would go on to form a relationship with a much older man who called himself George Brody, although most believe this was an alias. Anna's family would describe George Brody as being very manipulative and having a, quote, cult of personality over Anna's father, and this would eventually lead to the divorce of Anna's parents when she was around a year old. After the divorce, George would move into a cheap motel with Brody, although he could have afforded a much nicer place, and then he began supporting Brody financially. George would also reportedly consult Brody before making any of his own decisions, and he stopped visiting his daughter completely. Even though he didn't have a relationship with his daughter, George's friend George Brody was extremely interested in 5-year-old Anna because he believed that Anna was the reincarnation of a woman he had lived with before. Anna's name would even be legally changed to add the word Ivy as her middle name, which apparently has no meaning but just proves the chokehold Brody had Anna's father in. After his daughter's disappearance, George never reached out to his ex-wife for case updates or just to check in. His only known reaction to Anna's disappearance was to ask his attorney if it meant he could discontinue child support payments to Anna's mother. The mysterious man George Brody would pass away from cancer in December 1981, but to make things even more bizarre, his death certificate listed no birth date, no known relatives, and no social security number. Anna's father, George, would then go on to destroy every file that had anything to do with her or his companion, Brody, and then he would take his own life by drinking poison in the motel room. Police looked into Anna's father, George, and the mysterious man who called himself George Brody, but couldn't find any evidence that they had anything to do with Anna's disappearance. A private investigator was also unsuccessful in linking them to her vanishing. Anna's mother and stepfather believe she may still be alive, and if she is, they say she probably doesn't know she's a missing child, and her case remains unsolved to this day.
I realized I have never sat down and unpacked my stalker experience with you guys. So I'm going to tell you that story, but I do want to reference my phone for notes because, y'all, there is a lot to unpack here, and there is an extensive list of events that unfolded over several years. 4 years ago, I got an Instagram DM. And as a creator, you get a high volume of DMs. They're really hard to catch, but I saw this one and something told me to open it. So I did. And it was a very, very flattering message of a young man who was trying to shoot his shot or court me, whatever. It was very flattering. However, I scroll up and there are backlogged messages that show years of attempts of trying to reach out to me. We had no mutual followers, and there's actually a really unique timeline here because I was in a public relationship for a year and a half. You can see where he messaged me before my relationship became public. He kind of paused the messages while I was in this relationship, and as soon as the public became aware that I was single again, the messages became very, very persistent. This individual had his city and state in his bio, which was states and states away from where I was living, like 600 miles away. So I wasn't worried about it, and I just ignored it, and I just chalked it up to whatever. I continue to check my messages once a week because that is a common way for businesses to reach creators. And while I wasn't opening them, I began to notice that his name was popping up at the top whenever I refreshed my messages a lot of the time. Eventually, I do go view his message request once again because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this guy is reaching out to me all the time. So whenever I do view his message request, I can see that his tone has shifted from flattery to angry, and you can tell that me not responding is being perceived by the sender as rejection. Initially, my thought process was, if I do not block this person, then they will truly never know if I have ever laid eyes on these messages. They won't ever know they've actually reached me, and that's the way I want it to be. So I continue to not block him and just go about my life. And that is until I start getting Facebook friend requests by accounts with this person's name. Keep in mind, at this point in time, I had a private friends and family only Facebook. So I get this message request and I'm like, I not only delete it, but I block this account. And the second I blocked this account, it was like the same day, he made another new Facebook account and added me again. And this started a cycle. the faster I would block these Facebook accounts, the sooner he would make another one in an attempt to send me a friend request. Then he shows up in my TikTok comment sections and he is being very vulgar. He's saying a lot of false, untrue, and just angry things about me. So I continue to block him. But the faster I block him, the more he makes accounts. It was so unusual. And also at this point in time, I'm a full-time college student and a part-time content creator. And it became so evident that this man had more time on his hands than me because I could not keep up. At this point in time, I get another Facebook friend request from this person, but I actually do a deep dive on his profile before blocking him this time, and what I discover is dozens and dozens of posts of blonde women that he is infatuated with, myself included, but his other interests were like blonde political commentators. Like Tommy Lauren was his other one that he really, really liked and posted about. But I think all of them had political backgrounds besides myself. But what was really unique is that there was no common theme in these posts. Some of them he would be applauding these women, and others he would basically be calling us evil. I blocked that Facebook account and I'm trying to move on with my life whenever I start getting cryptic emails from this person. And they are just very detailed, in-depth stories of essentially me betraying him throughout our childhood, betraying his family, and he paints me to be this evil figure in all of these stories. So at this point, obviously, I look up this guy's public record and I see, okay, he is 6 or 7 years older than me. So obviously they are not true, but they're not even hypothetically possible. Like, we were never children at the same time. We were never in the same classrooms. I don't know his grandparents like he is insisting that I do. It just becomes evident in these emails that he is genuinely angry and he is convinced with all his heart that I have done heinous things to his grandparents, who I've never met, that live 600 miles away from where I was raised. A few days go by and I get a phone call from my mother. And this is very upsetting. I'm going to try not to get emotional. But she asked me if I have seen this guy's Facebook post, because he had posted a screenshot of the Google Maps aerial view of my childhood home where my parents raised me, that they currently lived in. And he was encouraging people online to ransack their house because they were bad people and they deserved it. This obviously broke my heart because, first of all, my parents did not ask to be in the public eye. I subjected myself to be a creator and to live a public life, but they did not ask for this. They are just good old country folks. They are God-fearing Americans who've worked for everything they have ever had. And so to see somebody that they don't even know put them in danger, that's whenever things got real. My parents contact the authorities. But since this man does not live in my state, state investigators cannot do anything. So we reach out to his state authorities, and they can't help me because I'm 600 miles away. The number one thing that everyone is encouraging me not to do is to get a restraining order, because they say that's just a piece of paper and that will make things worse. So at this point, we've had no contact. I mean, there is no point where we ever have contact. This man has 3 or 4 active Facebook accounts that he starts to treat like his diary, and even though I would block them from my personal account, my parents and my friends began to monitor them because they were public. On his Facebook diary account, he starts to post accusing me of heinous disasters. He is accusing me and convinced that I am responsible of closed case disasters that took place before I was even born. He is also convinced that I am in cahoots with the Russian government, and he posts it on Facebook all the time. A few days later, he posts a Google Maps route on his Facebook, and it is a route from his town that he lived in to my college town where I was living in. Keep in mind that I'm from Sleepy, Arkansas, so I would post what restaurants that I frequented at. I wanted to promote a local business. I had the same license plate on my truck from the time I was 16, which had my name on it. And I just posted like this for years. Well, I get home from this restaurant and I am notified on my iPhone that there is an AirTag on my vehicle. I go to his Facebook profile, and this same night, he has posted a picture in front of a hotel that is half a mile from my college house. I can't find the air tag, but I read on Google that you need to run through a car wash if you can't find an air tag. In case it's on your undercarriage, you'll knock it off. I go through the car wash, I call the police, there's nothing they can do. Then his mother reaches out to my mom. She tells my mother she's worried for my safety and genuinely believes that I am in danger. She says her son was a good kid all of his life, lost his mind in his mid-20s, has no grasp of reality, and she says that he has been talking about me like he has known me for years. She tried to convince him he doesn't know me, and he gets angry at her and takes it out on her. She said that she was scared for her life, and I should be scared for mine too. It's turkey season. What do? I'm an online college student. I leave town and I go turkey hunting for the next 3 months. I don't stay in the same place 2 nights in a row. I quit posting my present location. I don't stay in the same place more than one night, but the harassment of messages and posts and comments will not stop. I thought I was being slick until one of my friends that is also a creator posted publicly that I was with them in real time, and he posted in his little Facebook diary that he was driving to that state. And then he posts that someone needs to end my life. At this point, he has aunts reaching out to me, telling me that I'm in danger, but I don't know if that is his aunt or if that is him trying to reach me. A few days later, he posts online that he is going to harm a very well-known branch of a huge global corporation that was local to him, and he gets locked away. A lot of women are encouraged to stay silent on their stalker experiences for their safety, but I want to raise awareness. Ladies, never post where you're going or where you've been.
Let's read another scary story that was sent to us. A few years ago, when I was in middle school, I was about 12 or 13, my older brother and I would walk home from school back to my grandparents' house that isn't far from there. We would stay there for a couple of hours until our dad picked us up because our house was much further away. This one day that we got back to our grandparents' house, nobody was home. When we got in, my brother went into the living room and laid on the couch, and I went and sat at the kitchen bench with my laptop. When we walked in, I watched my brother jump on the couch and take a nap with a blanket on him, so it would not have been him who I had seen later. Anyway, I was playing around on Photo Booth on my laptop when I saw something or someone behind me. About 5 to 6 meters away, standing right at the bottom of the staircase to my back, there was a silhouette of a person on the screen. I took the filter that was on my computer off, thinking that that's what made it look like a person was there, but it remained. I don't know why I didn't turn back. I just kept staring at the screen, so I took a picture with no filter. When I looked at the photo of this thing in the dark corner of the room at the bottom of the staircase, I decided to turn back and, you guessed it, nothing was there. I was so confused in the moment, not scared at all though, oddly, but I was sure that I saw what I saw. I thought that my brother was messing with me, so I went to go ask him if that was him standing in the picture. But he was asleep when I asked him, and he woke up so confused, wondering why I'd asked that. He messed with me all the time, but on this one occasion he truly seemed genuine, and he was in the same spot I had seen him in when he went to the couch. Later that afternoon, my cousin in her early 20s who was living there at the time came home. I showed her the picture and it was blurry because of how dark this part of the house was, but it was clear that someone was standing there. I've always been into spooky stuff and spirits, so I asked her on that topic, and she's all into that too. And she said that her mom, and her sister have seen and heard some really odd things, saying they always saw something at the corner of their eye and a shadow standing at the bottom of the staircase. Possibly a woman, and thumping coming from upstairs when nobody is there. Like loud thumping. The house isn't super old, built in the 60s or 70s, but there's an attic that holds all of my Nan and Pop's old belongings, old dolls and heirlooms. And some of these things are really, really old, going back to mid-1800s. I don't know who or what it was, but I've never seen anything since then. Though when my cousin just a couple years ago had a kid, on the baby cam still living at the house, she saw some unexplainable things such as the blanket on the bed being rolled over her kid while he was sleeping, and tugging of the blanket out of nowhere. That house is definitely haunted, and I can't help but wonder if maybe some of those like heirlooms are haunted. I don't know. But they think that maybe the spirit is a woman and they saw something or someone covering the baby up with the blanket. Maybe she's not a bad spirit. I don't know. What do y'all think?
The strangest unsolved mysteries from each state. Today we have Nevada. Terry McClure disappeared after leaving her son Tim's wedding in Lake Tahoe in 1983. 3 days later, she was found dead in a Carson City casino parking lot. Tim and Terry were really close. They even lived together, and so he was very upset when he found out that his mother was found in the parking lot and that she had been shot in the head twice. She was also believed to have died the night of his wedding. The police actually started looking at Tim as the main suspect in Terry's murder. They said they had circumstantial evidence that pointed at him for being responsible for her murder. Something that the police found very suspicious was that the day before her disappearance, he canceled all of her credit cards. And a few months before her death, Terry had taken out a $10,000 life insurance policy with Tim as the co-beneficiary. In other words, if she dies, he gets $10,000. Tim was arrested after he appeared on the show Unsolved Mysteries, but the case was dismissed when the DA declined to prosecute him. And some of Tim's family members publicly state that they think he's guilty. These strangest unsolved mysteries from each state. This is part 3 of the Ohio Circleville letters. Ron and Mary only told 3 people about the letters. They had one of those 3 people write to a person that they thought it could be, and in the letter they wrote that they knew who they were and that they should stop, but they were bluffing. They were just trying to see if it really was that person. And it seemed to be working for a few weeks until Ron got a call on August 19th, 1977 from the alleged writer. To Ron, this identified the unknown person even more, so he grabbed his gun, got in his truck, and started driving. And he did that even though the writer claimed that he was watching Ron's truck. Then a few minutes after Ron left, he was found dead in his pickup truck from hitting a tree. But the police investigated his gun, and it was confirmed that he shot at least 1 bullet before he crashed. But then they claimed it was an accident because he was driving drunk because his BAC was twice the limit. Ron's friends and family were very confused by this because they claimed that he was not a heavy drinker and that he would never do this. After his death, Mary and the superintendent admitted that they had a relationship, but they claimed that it started after the letter started. I'm sorry it's so long, but last part is coming right now, part 4.
A plane that vanished without a trace suddenly landed 10 years later. But what the authorities found inside left everyone speechless. It all began like any ordinary flight. Passengers were boarding, the crew gave their usual safety instructions, and the aircraft took off smoothly. But just minutes after takeoff, something strange happened. The plane suddenly disappeared from radar. Rescue teams searched for weeks, then months. No signal, no wreckage, nothing. It was as if the plane had been erased from existence. After years of searching, the airline declared all passengers dead and compensated the families. But a decade later, air traffic control picked up a signal from an unidentified aircraft. It matched the same flight ID, the one that vanished 10 years ago. When the mysterious jet finally landed, chaos erupted on the runway. Police surrounded the plane and boarded it carefully. But what they found inside will send chills down your spine. Tap the plus button and comment "plane" for part 2.
So check this crazy ass loophole I just went through. I nutted in the condom. Put water in the condom. Okay? Then, you want to take it a step further, put the condom over a light. At that point, you're going to see a homemade lava lamp. Not capping though.
I realized that I have never sat down and unpacked my stalker experience with you guys. So I'm going to tell you that story, but I do want to reference my phone for notes because, y'all, there is a lot to unpack here, and there is an extensive list of events that unfolded over several years. 4 years ago, I got an Instagram DM. And as a creator, you get a high volume of DMs. They're really hard to catch, but I saw this one and something told me to open it. So I did. And it was a very, very flattering message of a young man who was trying to shoot his shot or court me, whatever. It was very flattering. However, I scroll up and there are backlogged messages that show years of attempts of trying to reach out to me. We had no mutual followers, and there's actually a really unique timeline here because I was in a public relationship for 1.5 years. You can see where he messaged me before my relationship became public. He kind of paused the messages while I was in this relationship, and as soon as the public became aware that I was single again, the messages became very, very persistent. This individual had his city and state in his bio, which was states and states away from where I was living, like 600 miles away. So I wasn't worried about it, and I just ignored it, and I just chalked it up to whatever. I continued to check my messages once a week because that is a common way for businesses to reach creators. And while I wasn't opening them, I began to notice that his name was popping up at the top whenever I refreshed my messages a lot of the time. Eventually, I do go view his message request once again because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this guy is reaching out to me all the time. So whenever I do view his message request, I can see that his tone has shifted from flattery to angry, and you can tell that me not responding is being perceived by the sender as rejection. Initially, my thought process was, if I do not block this person, then they will truly never know if I have ever laid eyes on these messages. They won't ever know they've actually reached me, and that's the way I want it to be. So I continue to not block him and just go about my life. And that is until I start getting Facebook friend requests by accounts with this person's name. Keep in mind, at this point in time, I had a private friends and family only Facebook. So I get this message request and I'm like, I not only delete it, but I block this account. And the second I blocked this account, it was like the same day. He made another new Facebook account and added me again. And this started a cycle. The faster I would block these Facebook accounts, the sooner he would make another one in an attempt to send me a friend request. Then he shows up in my TikTok comment sections and he's being very vulgar. He's saying a lot of false, untrue, and just angry things about me. So I continue to block him. But the faster I block him, the more he makes accounts. It was so unusual. And also at this point in time, I'm a full-time college student and a part-time content creator. And it became so evident that this man had more time on his hands than me because I could not keep up. At this point in time, I get another Facebook friend request from this person, but I actually do a deep dive on his profile before blocking him this time, and what I discover is dozens and dozens of posts of blonde women that he is infatuated with, myself included, but his other interests were like blonde political commentators. Like Tommy Lauren was his other one that he really, really liked and posted about. But I think all of them had political backgrounds besides myself. But what was really unique is that there was no common theme in these posts. Some of them he would be applauding these women, and others he would basically be calling us evil. I blocked that Facebook account and I'm trying to move on with my life whenever I start getting cryptic emails from this person. And they are just very detailed, in-depth stories of essentially me betraying him throughout our childhood, betraying his family, and he paints me to be this evil figure in all of these stories. So at this point, obviously, I look up this guy's public record and I see, okay, he is 6 or 7 years older than me. So obviously they are not true, but they're not even hypothetically possible. Like, we were never children at the same time. We were never in the same classrooms. I don't know his grandparents like he is insisting that I do. It just becomes evident in these emails that he is genuinely angry and he is convinced with all his heart that I have done heinous things to his grandparents, who I've never met, that live 600 miles away from where I was raised. A few days go by and I get a phone call from my mother. And this is very upsetting. I'm going to try not to get emotional. But she asked me if I have seen this guy's Facebook post, because he had posted a screenshot of the Google Maps aerial view of my childhood home where my parents raised me, that they currently lived in. And he was encouraging people online to ransack their house because they were bad people and they deserved it. This obviously broke my heart because, first of all, my parents did not ask to be in the public eye. I subjected myself to be a creator and to live a public life, but they did not ask for this. They are just good old country folks. They are God-fearing Americans who've worked for everything they have ever had. And so to see somebody that they don't even know put them in danger, that's whenever things got real. My parents contact the authorities. But since this man does not live in my state, state investigators cannot do anything. So we reach out to his state authorities, and they can't help me because I'm 600 miles away. The number one thing that everyone is encouraging me not to do is to get a restraining order, because they say that's just a piece of paper and that will make things worse. So at this point, we've had no contact. I mean, there is no point where we ever have contact. This man has 3 or 4 active Facebook accounts that he starts to treat like his diary, and even though I would block them from my personal account, my parents and my friends began to monitor them because they were public. On his Facebook diary account, he starts to post accusing me of heinous disasters. He is accusing me and convinced that I am responsible of closed case disasters that took place before I was even born. He is also convinced that I am in cahoots with the Russian government, and he posts it on Facebook all the time. A few days later, he posts a Google Maps route on his Facebook, and it is a route from his town that he lived in to my college town where I was living in. Keep in mind that I'm from Sleepy, Arkansas, so I would post what restaurants that I frequented at. I wanted to promote a local business. I had the same license plate on my truck from the time I was 16, which had my name on it. And I just posted like this for years. Well, I get home from this restaurant and I am notified on my iPhone that there is an AirTag on my vehicle. I go to his Facebook profile, and this same night, he has posted a picture in front of a hotel that is half a mile from my college house. I can't find the AirTag, but I read on Google that you need to run through a car wash if you can't find an AirTag. In case it's on your undercarriage, you'll knock it off. I go through the car wash, I call the police, there's nothing they can do. Then his mother reaches out to my mom. She tells my mother she's worried for my safety and genuinely believes that I am in danger. She says her son was a good kid all of his life, lost his mind in his mid-20s, has no grasp of reality, and she says that he has been talking about me like he has known me for years. She tried to convince him he doesn't know me, and he gets angry at her and takes it out on her. She said that she was scared for her life, and I should be scared for mine too. It's turkey season. What do? I'm an online college student. I leave town and I go turkey hunting for the next 3 months. I don't stay in the same place 2 nights in a row. I quit posting my present location. I don't stay in the same place more than 1 night, but the harassment of messages and posts and comments will not stop. I thought I was being slick until one of my friends that is also a creator posted publicly that I was with them in real time, and he posted in his little Facebook diary that he was driving to that state. And then he posts that someone needs to end my life. At this point, he has aunts reaching out to me telling me that I'm in danger, but I don't know if that is his aunt or if that is him trying to reach me. A few days later, he posts online that he is going to harm a very well-known branch of a huge global corporation that was local to him, and he gets locked away. A lot of women are encouraged to stay silent on their stalker experiences for their safety, but I want to raise awareness. Ladies, never post where you're going or where you've been.
Oh yeah, one more thing. If y'all see me on Love Island, mind your fucking business, bitch. I'm trying to find love, bitch. Y'all had y'all motherfucking chance.
We're continuing vibing with Robert Stack and feeling the Stack vibes as we continue to talk about some of the most terrifying episodes of Unsolved Mysteries. Someone had to ignite your childhood fear, and then someone else had to come along and help trigger it. Moi. Side note too, to the homie that thought that this tie was from Olive Garden, no, because it didn't come with unlimited breadsticks and salad when I got it. And that's the mystery, and maybe perhaps you too can help solve it. And another side note and a what's up to my new friend Ryan Ruddy. For all of you guys that are wondering where can you watch these episodes, well, you can still watch them here on TikTok on his channel. He has an Unsolved Mysteries channel where he is dedicated to uploading full-length episodes of the show, being the Trenchcoat legacy going. The episode we're going to cover is The Wywick House, or Gordy's Ghost. Now, this episode aired in 1994, and it was a part of their Season 7, Episode 4. This episode rings a bell because several years later, it would be featured in a Haunting in Georgia documentary. It's also another oldie and a goodie. We opened the episode with a 8-year-old Heidi Wyrick, and her family just moved to a small town in Georgia where they bought a cute little house, and upon playing in her new living room, she hears a knock on the door. She is greeted by this older gentleman at the door. He has a bloody right hand, but he seems nice. Stranger danger, right, Heidi? Heidi's like, I got a really good feeling about this guy. Guy introduces himself as Con, and he is a next door neighbor of hers, and he tells her, I have this really dope-ass swing set in my backyard. You are more than welcome to go and play there. He's still not fazed about what's going on here. But she does notice that the man has an injured right hand. So she's like, wait, I'm gonna go ask my mom for permission first, stranger. Heidi goes and asks her mom about Mr. Khan and the swing set. Also mentions, oh, he has this gnarly injured right hand and it's bleeding profusely. Her mom, Lisa, goes and rushes to the front door and she sees no one. And she goes outside. She doesn't see an older man with an injured hand. She sees nothing. The mom tells her husband, Andy, like, we got a psycho in the neighborhood running around, knocking on doors, asking our little girl to go play in his backyard with a bloody hand. So Andy goes in his truck and he searches high and low all over the neighborhood, but he doesn't find anybody. This is the real Heidi right here. So she goes on to say, well, I meet another gentleman and his name is Mr. Gordy. Mr. Gordy looking nice. He's got a suit and tie, no bloody hand. Two are just BFFs. He is like the sweetest Boo Bear to her. And she adores him and ends up, having tea with him and is talking to him. Lisa notices this and is like, who are you talking to? And Heidi tells her, it's Mr. Gordy. Do you not see him, Mom? He's in a suit and tie and shiny black shoes. He is my best friend and we've been hanging out for quite some time. And her mom puts kind of like two and two together and is like, oh, Heidi is special. It also turns out that Lisa's sister buys the house next door, and it just so happened that the former owner was named Mr. James Gordy. Lisa ends up finding a distant relative of the man who goes by the nickname Con, which is Catherine Kelly Ledford. And she comes to the house to meet Heidi, and she brings photos. He immediately recognizes Con. This is his real photo right here. And it turned out that Con was actually called Lon, L-O-N. Died of cancer in 1957, and when he was 23, he lost his right hand in a cotton gin accident. Lisa is just completely freaked out, but accepts that Heidi has a gift. He goes on to explain that her, Con, and Mr. Gordy are still BFFs, still visit, they hang out around the neighborhood. Fast forward to several years later, in 1993, Lisa is pregnant with her second child. And something in the environment shifts, specifically towards Heidi. Heidi started to notice that after her mom got pregnant, things started to take a strange turn. Started to see less of Mr. Gordy and Mr. Khan. She started to see more dark entities. According to Heidi, these entities really gave her a bad vibe. They never had a face. The strangest thing is, compared to Mr. Gordy and Khan, these entities never talked. Scared her at night and would lay next to her in bed. Then they started to get really physical towards her. Started to get scratched by something. He thought that she was just scratching herself at night, and then it started to attack Andy at night. Andy said that he woke up and he felt something sharp and painful on the side of his ribs. He noticed the scratch marks that would appear on the side of his stomach, his back, and then eventually his head. We see our favorite friend, Dr. William Roll. Remember him from The Ghosts of the Queen Mary. And it's so sad because he looks like he's really aged here. We like William because he comes and he interviews Heidi, spends like a day or two talking to her, and he too is pretty shocked about her encounters. Then he decides, well, I have some pictures and I'm going to show you, and I want you to pick out Mr. Gordy. And as the show is being filmed in their living room with Dr. Roll, Heidi pulls a picture of Mr. Gordy and tells Dr. Roll, this is him. This is my friend, Mr. Gordy. This is the Mr. James Gordy. He's very well known in the community, and he had passed many, many years ago. And according to Dr. William Roll's conclusion on Heidi, is that they're definitely dealing with some genuine parapsychological experiences, especially in this location. As of today, Heidi is 45 years old. She lives in her old family house in Georgia. Fortunately, she hasn't seen Mr. Gordy in years, but she has seen a dark entity with numerous spirits. That she takes them in stride and she goes about her life and her day. Fortunately, her father, Andrew, passed away at the age of 45 in 2012. Love this episode. I always felt that it was bittersweet, the good yet the scary, and I definitely remember the documentary A Haunting in Georgia. If you remember this episode, and always remember that perhaps you too can always solve a mystery. Stay haunted and stay weird. Stack vibes.
I had to turn on all my lights after reading this story. If you're new here, hi. I usually talk about some pretty scary stuff, and today I'm going to be talking about a story that I've been kind of putting off making the video for. And a huge driving factor on this, and now I'm going to be fully transparent about this. I'm not a fan of making videos about demonic things or demons specifically because every single time I've made a video, whether it's my personal experience or if it's someone else's, I hear things in either the background or in the audio and I have to reshoot it, something every single time.
I've also had instances where my dogs are growling at things that are not there, so you get the gist on why I'm a little hesitant to make videos about demonic things. But without further ado, let's get into it. This story comes from Lexi, who lives in West Virginia and lives in a very haunted house. She says that the hauntings started around the time when she was 6. Just for context purposes, she was 4 when her parents got a divorce, and her mom started seeing this man when she was around 6 years old, and shortly after, all of these hauntings started. And at first it was small occurrences, like her mom telling her to pick up her toys, so she would do so, and when they would come back, the toys would be scattered all across the floor. And she mentions during these instances, her mom and her both were afraid because they both knew that it was almost impossible for these things to be happening. But they continued to brush off these little noises, these little occurrences, because they could be coincidental. And Lexi says that this continued for 2 years before her mom's boyfriend moved in, and his parents actually lived down the street from Lexi's mom, where all of this stuff is occurring. And one night, Lexi, her mom, and her mom's boyfriend go down to his parents' house to have dinner. A couple of his cousins were over with their kids, and there was this little girl there who was like 2 years older than Lexi at the time, so little girl was 10, Lexi was 8. And when they were playing, this little girl just out of the blue says, "Did you know that there's an old woman who lives in the bedroom upstairs?" And at the time, she thought it was creepy, but she just kind of brushed it off, thinking that the little girl was just trying to scare her. A couple days later, her mom is walking up the stairs to use the bathroom, and Lexi just tells her mom, "Hey, little girl's name said that there is a woman who lives in the bedroom upstairs." Her mom kind of turns around and is like, "Which bedroom?" So Lexi walks upstairs, gets to the door, and goes to look in and points and says, "This one." And as she does, she did in fact see a woman standing there, very pale, black hair, and a long nightgown. Lexi specifically said that it looked like it was from the early 1900s. And obviously upon seeing this, Lexi ran downstairs, and her mom was really confused until they got back to their house and she explained the entire situation. Lexi's mom's boyfriend was overhearing this conversation and asked her to describe this woman. And when she did, he then said that they had been seeing that same woman there for years. And this is where things take a turn for the worse. Lexi says from that point on, the encounters in her house that were once very small became very amplified and very scary. And she said specifically that many nights she would feel like there was something in the room with her, even more specifically watching her sleep. But again, she brushed it off because she thought she was just scared. Until she was having a friend sleep over, and her friend woke her up in the middle of the night to specifically tell Lexi that she had seen a woman looking at her from over the footboard, just like this. And Lexi thought it was a joke until her friend described the exact same woman she had been seeing. And I guess things get even worse, because after this instance, Lexi's mom begins telling her that she has been seeing her walk around the house when she is not home. She can hear Lexi talking when she is not home. And Lexi had been seeing this woman in mirrors, like when she's brushing her teeth, for example. And on top of this, and what I think is the scariest, Lexi would hear clapping when nobody else was home, and people talking when nobody else is home. And most recently, she tells me that they have 2 dogs, and she brought one of the dogs into her room when she starts to hear the other dog whining and a woman talking to her dog. So immediately she opens the door, tells the other dog, like, "Mom's home." The dog does not get up and greet her mom like he would normally do. And when Lexi walks out to go see her mom, she finds out that her mom is not home, her car is not in the driveway, and she is still at work. So again, she goes back in her room, closes the door, clear as day, hears a woman say, "Come here, where are you?" And she can hear the dog go from whining to barking. So immediately, she thinks that someone has broken into her house. She locks her door, gets her softball bat out, and calls her mom to come home immediately. The dog she had with her began barking, and thankfully, her mom only works like 10 minutes away, so she rushed home. But during the time of her mom coming home, Lexi began to hear heavy footsteps coming towards her door. And Lexi specifically states that the energy felt so heavy, and when whatever was outside of the door got to the door, it got eerily silent, and the keychain she has on her door began swaying back and forth. Her mom then got home, found no one in the house, and Lexi believes that this spirit attached itself to her and followed them home and has not left. Because that last instance happened like 3 weeks ago. And before I get into anything else, I just have to pause and say I've had to cut a couple of things out because I was hearing banging noises on my wall. And if you don't know, now you do. I either film early in the morning or late at night. I do this because then I don't have to worry about outside noises or my neighbors being awake, etc. So I don't know, and it's furthering the I don't like making videos about demons kind of thing. What really freaked me out was the clapping and obviously the lady looking over the footboard. I don't like that. And I swear I can almost see her face when I'm talking about this. And when I read it the first time, I could see her. But anyways, that's going to do it for me. Stay tuned for more ghost stories.
Room 113. I'm a sophomore here at Stonewood College. And every year, it's a tradition to tell the freshmen the story of Room 113, about the strange disappearance of a girl named Lila Turner, that 20 years ago, Lila raved about a mysterious dorm room that only she could see, Room 113. No one believed her. They said she went mad, obsessed with the room. And then on one rainy night, she walked into Room 113 and vanished forever. Ooh. Last year I was told the story. I and most people dismiss the story as an urban legend, just another college tale designed to give the freshmen the chills. Well, this year, I get to tell the freshmen and pass on the tradition. One Friday night, my friends and I gathered in the old common room of Dormitory Hall B, sharing scary stories over snacks and cheap beer, with some freshmen, of course. It was right here, in this very building, I said with a dramatic flair, pointing to the hallway. They said she went mad because no one believed her. Room 113 was all she ever talked about. And then she just disappeared. My friends giggled as we saw the freshman eyes widen, the fluorescent lights overhead flickering ever so slightly, adding to the atmosphere. Does 113 exist? A freshman asked, eyes wide as ever, waiting for me to reassure that it was all a myth. Many have searched for 113, but they all come to a dead end at 112. But hey, who knows? Maybe you'll too go crazy and get to see 113, I said. Ending the night and heading back to my dorm room with my head held high, I felt good carrying on the tradition. Felt like I did my civil duty, I don't know, as a college student. Maybe I should have just kept my mouth shut. Then I wouldn't be in this situation. Who knows? As I turned the corner to my dorm room hall, that's when I saw it. A door that shouldn't have been there, nestled right at the other end of the hall, and a rusty plaque that read 113. My stomach dropped and I froze in my tracks, my eyes locked at the sight. It was a bright red door with chipped paint and a tarnished doorknob. It was unmistakable. That door was not supposed to be there. All the other dorm room doors were this light cream color on either side. I blinked and it was gone. The door was gone. Nothing but an empty wall at the end of the hall. I let out a short laugh of relief and I shook my head. Damn, no more cheap beer for me, I said, and I hurried my ass back to my room and I locked the door behind me. The following days were a blur of late night study sessions and social gatherings, but that image, the image of the door lingered, nagging at the back of my mind. I didn't mention it to anybody. I mean, I would have sounded crazy, and I was drunk. Let's be honest. So, and it was a flicker of the light. Maybe it was an illusion. I don't know. It was a one-time thing, I thought. But then I saw it again. I was heading to the library one afternoon when I turned down the hallway leading to the stairs, and there it was, room 113, standing ominously against the wall. It was in a completely different place than the first time. My ear began ringing at the sight, and this time the This time it was closer than before, a few feet away from me. I don't know why, but something compelled my body. My mind was saying run, but my body started making its way towards the door. I reached out, internally screaming and begging my body to pull away. But just as my fingers brushed the knob, someone called my name. I jumped back, falling on my ass, heart racing, gasping for air. Just like that, the door was gone. My friend Sarah came around the corner and saw me sitting on my ass, staring at a blank wall. You good? Catching my breath, I told her what just happened. She couldn't tell if I was joking or if I was being serious, but all I knew is there was no point in arguing and trying to convince her. So I just pretended to laugh, hoping that if I just ignored and pretended that what just happened didn't happen, that it actually didn't happen. Fake it till you make it, right? But ignoring it got harder. As the weeks passed, the sightings became more frequent. Sometimes it was just a glimpse at the end of the hall. Other times I'd see the door right outside my dorm room, waiting, always there. And every time I would have to fight the urge to go towards it. Soon it was all I could think about. I stopped sleeping. My dreams were filled with endless corridors and that awful, awful image of that red door. I couldn't hide it anymore. My friends started to notice me just staring at empty walls, my dark circles, my jumpiness. They grew worried. I mean, who wouldn't? And I would catch them whispering about me. They treated me like some sort of wounded puppy, probably with the same condescending pity that Lila Turner must have faced 20 years ago. I knew what they were thinking, that I was losing it, okay? I'm not stupid. Days went by and the door wouldn't stop pursuing me. I think I reached a point where I stopped avoiding it and I started searching for it. Then one day I met up with my friends at the library and they were whispering about me again. And well, I'm not proud of it, but I crashed out and I crashed out badly. And I screamed in front of a room filled with people. I'm not crazy, and I know what you're thinking, so wipe that stupid "I feel sorry for her" look off your ugly, bitchy faces. I couldn't believe I just said that to my best friends. I grabbed my things and I aggressively pushed open the library doors, making my way back outside, heading to my dorm room building. It started pouring rain, and so I became soaked walking back. Stressed, my tears started streaming down my face, but the rain just washed it away. I finally made it back to my building. And as I turned the corner of my dorm room hall, I froze in my tracks, my wet clothes dripping on the carpet. There it was again, right at the end of the hall, exactly like the first time I saw it. Room 113. Anger overcame my fear, and I sprinted towards the door, heart hammering in my chest. Without a second thought, I grasped the cold doorknob, and I pushed open the door, and I stepped inside. The room was small and dark. It was barely lit by this dim light on the ceiling. And the room had this old, ugly floral wallpaper that was peeling and showcasing the mold growing underneath. A musty smell filled my lungs. As I looked around, inspecting the room, I noticed that on the peeling wallpaper there was something written underneath. I take a step closer to examine, and that's when I read in frantic handwriting, "We've been waiting for you." The words made my stomach sink and turn, and I quickly turned to leave, but was met with terror. The door was gone. I paused for a second in disbelief. No. Panic surged through me. I turned around and around and around, hoping that the door was maybe on the other side, but was only met with the empty walls. I screamed and I screamed, pounding my fist against the wall, pleading for help, pleading for a way out. But I was alone. I fell to my knees in silence, and I crawled to the corner of the room, and I just stared at the emptiness. There was nothing. Nothing, no walls, no door, just a suffocating silence. Hours passed. I stopped counting. I'd cry myself to sleep from exhaustion and over again, and every time I would wake up, I'd be hit with my new reality. There's no way out. And that's when I noticed. That's when I noticed the walls. Every time I blinked, it seems as if the walls were moving in closer and closer, ever so slightly, millimeter at a time, barely noticeable. But I noticed. They were moving and they were closing in. I had to survive. I couldn't go out like this, I thought to myself. In a fit of rage, I stood up and I took hold of a peeling piece of wallpaper and I screamed, "Let me out, goddammit!" as I tore it from the wall with such force it caused me to fall back on my ass. And that's when I caught a glimpse of more writing. I paused for a second, looking around the room at all the peeling pieces. I shot up and I ran towards the wall, and it peeled it some more and revealed the words, "Please stay." My eyes scanned the words back and forth, and that's when I thought to myself, there's something underneath the wallpaper. I started frantically peeling, revealing more and more writing as I went. The writing was all along the lines of, don't leave us, stay, you're meant to be here, join us, stay, please don't leave. As I started peeling the last wall, that's when I saw the corner of what appeared to be a door and light seeping through. I peeled faster and faster, and I could feel as if the room itself was angry at me. I could feel it grunt and rumble with each piece I peeled. And I was right. There was a door. My way out. As I reached for the knob, my hand felt empty. There was no knob. Panic creeping in yet again, hyperventilating. I began to use my fingernails to try to pry it open, breaking nail after nail. And then I heard a creak. Only one more tug and I knew it would open. As I took my bloody fingers to the door once more, I felt something grab a hold of me from the back. As I looked behind me, I was met with a nightmare. It was my own self.
Don't leave,
it said. Sheer terror in my eyes. I didn't think twice. I pry open the door and throw myself through, falling to the floor of my own dorm room. I look back behind me and I see myself, a sad expression across her face. She takes a step back inside the room, and then the door to room 113 slams shut and disappears right before me. As I sat there on the floor, I began to cry and laugh. A mix of emotions ran through me. Once I gathered myself together, I didn't think twice. I packed a small bag and I left college that day. It's been over a year now. I still sometimes see it in the corner of my eye, room 113. I catch it in between glances, and I can't help but feel some sort of emptiness. Maybe I left a piece of myself in that room that day, but I can't help but miss it. Look, I don't know why room 113 exists, and I don't know its purpose. But maybe that's my purpose. Maybe I was meant to stay in that room. Maybe I was meant to never leave. I want to go back. I have to. I'm going back. I have to go back. I have to go back. Back to room 113. Good night.
What is one true crime case that you just can't stop thinking about? I always wonder what really happened to 6-year-old Catherine Korzelius. On August 7th, 1996, Catherine, along with her mom Nancy and her brother Chris, were out running errands. Catherine's dad was Paul Korzelius, who at the time was the tour manager for John Bon Jovi. That day was Paul's birthday, so they were all out looking for a present for him. They all lived on Elder Circle, which is a small neighborhood near Austin, Texas. When they got back to Elder Circle, Catherine wanted to pick up the mail from the community mailbox and then walk home. The mailboxes were only about 1/8 of a mile from their home, and Catherine had done this a few times before, so her mom let her. Catherine would take the shorter route home, while her mom and brother would take the longer route around Elder Circle. This way, they would be getting home at almost the same time. But once Nancy and Chris got home with still no sign of Catherine, Nancy sent Chris to go and look for her. But when Chris couldn't find her, Nancy started searching for her by car. Within minutes, they found her laying in the middle of the road on Elder Circle. She was unconscious but still breathing. According to Nancy, she didn't want to make her daughter lay on the hot pavement, so she picked her up and took her to the hospital. Little Catherine suffered from a fractured skull and never regained consciousness, and sadly, she died later that day. Authorities initially thought that Catherine was a victim of a hit and run, but certain things didn't add up. Where Catherine's body was found was in an unusual spot. Her mom last saw her walking towards their house, but her body was found a little over a mile away from their home in the opposite direction that she was supposed to have gone. Catherine's body was actually found along the route that her mom and brother took to get home, and the autopsy only deepened the mystery. The autopsy showed that Catherine didn't die from a hit and run. Along with her head injury, she also had abrasions on her left shoulder, lower back, right hip, and her knees. The ME found that Catherine had either jumped, fallen, or was thrown from a moving vehicle. One theory investigators came up with was that Catherine maybe tried to hold on to the back of her mom's car on the drive home, but fell off. This would explain the location of where her body was found. But her family did not believe this, so they hired a PI. The PI noted that it was a really hot summer day, and at the time, Catherine's left thumb was broken and in a splint, so it would have been really difficult for her to hold on to anything. And it's likely her mom would have seen her in the rearview mirror. Catherine's family believes she was abducted and murdered. After her death, investigators brought in a canine unit that tracked her scent to a vacant lot 30 yards from the mailboxes, but it was lost after that. This sparked a theory that Catherine was approached by an attacker at the mailboxes, ran into the lot, was caught and thrown into a car, struck in the head, and then was thrown out of the vehicle where she was found. Nancy also stated that it appeared her daughter's body was laid out for her to find. Her hair was smoothed down, her clothes were straight, and her sandals were still on. Unfortunately, there's never been any answers in this case, and it's still labeled a suspicious death. John Bon Jovi wrote a song dedicated to Catherine called August 7, 415. And sadly, in March of 2020, Catherine's brother Chris, who grew up to be a police officer, was tragically killed in a car accident. There's a really strange missing persons case happening right now out of Utah. Let's talk about it. This is 21-year-old Elizabeth Green. She was last seen walking to work along a dirt road in Callio, Utah, which is an extremely remote area in northern Snake Valley. Like, there really isn't much out there, and the area she went missing is roughly 3 hours from any major city. Elizabeth had just started a new job at a remote ranch, and she was walking there that day, but never made it, and it's almost like she vanished into thin air. She was reported missing to the police later that day, and they began looking for her right away. Authorities have searched the area around her home and the ranch that she was going to work at, including the route that she would have taken to get there, but no trace of Elizabeth has been found. Police searched the ranch, which has not been publicly named, just 1 day after Elizabeth was reported missing, but according to them, they didn't find anything suspicious. The rancher said that she never made it to the ranch that day and that he had no contact with her, so it's left authorities wondering what truly happened to her that day. Police have tried pinging her phone, but they aren't able to get a connection, and they've searched all of her electronic devices, but they've all turned up nothing. There's been no activity on her social media accounts since that day either. Her mom thinks that Elizabeth could have possibly been picked up that day, but she just doesn't know by who. There's also a possibility that she arranged to have someone pick her up, but they didn't show, which could have led to Elizabeth trying to walk through the remote desert by herself. According to her family, she does suffer from some mental health issues and has ran away before, but no matter what, she's always stayed in contact with her family and she's always come back within a day. She would never just up and leave like this. Just based on the circumstances circumstances, police believe that she's in immediate danger. Like I mentioned before, Callao is extremely remote and so far away from any major city. So the fact that she just mysteriously disappeared and left behind no trace in a matter of hours is just terrifying. It's now been over a month and Elizabeth is still missing. With the summer weather coming up, we need to find out what really happened to her that day. These are some of her characteristics and what she was last seen wearing. If you have any information about this case, please contact the number on the screen.
How does a grown man disappear after having abdominal surgery just to be found in the hospital ceiling nearly 2 weeks later? And is it coincidence that another man in a similar situation also ended up in the ceiling of a hospital in the same country? When 61-year-old Tedetiki went in for surgery at the Stellenbosch Hospital, he was understandably nervous about this procedure. He underwent the abdominal surgery on October 5th, 2017, and everything went just as expected. However, during his recovery, his nurse left the room for what she claimed was mere seconds in order to grab some fresh linens. But as she returned to the room, Tedetiki was nowhere to be found. The nurse frantically searched for her patient, positive that he couldn't have gotten far. Because of the seriousness of his surgery, he was bedridden, left almost completely unable to move independently. She called his family to ask if he had somehow returned home, sending his family into a panic. His family rushed to the hospital, searching the hospital grounds themselves before reporting him missing. The initial search for Tedetiki was unsuccessful. It was as if he had just vanished into thin air, but nobody could explain how. 13 days later, as a construction crew worked on hospital renovations, they discovered Tedetiki's body in an isolated area of the hospital ceiling. An area that's incredibly difficult to reach, even for a completely capable person, much less for somebody healing from major abdominal surgery, or for somebody attempting to lift a grown man above their heads by themselves. Police reported that Tedetiki's autopsy somehow pointed to natural causes of death, but seemingly never handed that report over. His family showed a lack of faith in the investigation, saying that they were told that nothing more could be done in his case, and it remains that way to this day. Similarly, just 2 years later, on May 10, 2019, a 53-year-old construction worker named Sandil was admitted to the Mahatma Gandhi Memorial Hospital. Sandil had been helping a neighbor with a house repair when a wall collapsed, breaking his right femur. After arriving at the hospital and being assessed, Sandil's doctor suggested a transfer to a different hospital for treatment. But before the transfer could take place, Sandil had disappeared. His nurse went to check in on him and found him missing. The staff immediately began searching for him and subsequently reported him missing when they were unable to locate him. Weeks later, hospital staff would begin complaining about what they called an unbearable stench. Shortly after, a staff member would find a leak dripping down from the ceiling into the hospital storeroom. On May 25th, Sandil's decomposing body would be discovered in the hospital's ceiling. How did he get in the ceiling after breaking the biggest bone in his body? Sandil's family demanded answers, reporting that they were initially denied the ability to view his body. In both cases, the men had conditions that would prevent them from moving comfortably. How were they able to walk around freely in their state without staff or hospital visitors noticing? Not to mention the effort it would take for them to somehow climb up into the ceiling. Not much can be found on either of these cases, and both remain unsolved to this day.
So check this crazy ass loophole I just went through. I nutted in the condom. Put water in the condom. Okay? Then, you want to take it a step further, put the condom over a light. At that point, you're going to see a homemade lava lamp. Not capping though.
There's a really strange missing persons case happening right now out of New Mexico, and we should talk about it. This is Ingrid Colleen Lane. She went missing on October 15th of this year after leaving the Bodhi Manda Zen Center in the Jemez Mountains. She went on an overnight meditation retreat to clear her head and focus on her mental health, and it's something that she had done multiple times in the past, except this time she never returned home. Ingrid was last seen that day on Forest Road 144 by two hunters after her 2019 Subaru Impreza hatchback got a flat tire. tire. The two hunters aired up the tire for her and asked if she wanted to ride to the nearest town, as it was a really remote area. But she declined and said that she wanted to hike to a local mountain peak. This all happened around 2 p.m. Unfortunately, she did not specify which mountain peak, and this would be the last interaction that she would have with anyone. 3 days later, her car was found abandoned on that same road, and the rear window was smashed. And this is where things start to get strange. Inside the car was a burner phone that was still in its package, untouched and not activated. Her family, but more specifically her husband, are really confused on why that would be in her car. All of her accounts, including her cell phone, have not been active since the 15th. A massive search was launched for Ingrid, which consisted of canine units, drones, ATVs, and helicopters, but absolutely nothing has been found. The Sandoval Sheriff's Office brought in tracking dogs, which tracked Ingrid's scent in the area south and east of her vehicle on Forest Road 144, which is between Jemez Springs and Los Alamos, but it quickly died off within 2 miles of the vehicle. Authorities speculate she may have gotten a ride further into the mountains because of how suddenly her scent disappeared, and how the canines couldn't pinpoint a way she would have gone out. Most of Ingrid's family live in Oregon. They've spent countless hours traveling to New Mexico to search for her, but the terrain has made it really difficult. The area where she went missing is high elevation, densely forested, very remote, and way beyond cell phone range. According to a local sheriff, it's a really easy place to get lost in. Despite that, it's a really popular place in the hunting community and for avid hikers just like Ingrid, who had been to the area multiple times. Like I mentioned earlier, Ingrid had stayed at the Bodhi Manda Zen Center many times in her life. The Zen Center reportedly confirmed that Ingrid had been there that day around 9 a.m., and while she was there, she meditated with the group but left shortly after. The director of the retreat said that she seemed to be in a good frame of mind and that nothing was amiss. But Ingrid completely vanished, and it's now been 6 weeks with no sign of her. At this point, authorities do not suspect foul play despite the odd circumstances. Her family stated that she struggles with sleep and mental health, but they don't believe that she went into the mountains not planning to come back for many reasons. One reason being is that she was really happy before this happened, planning on going back to work the next week, making plans, and just overall excited about her future. She and her husband are described as having a once-in-a-lifetime type of love, and they say that it would be so out of character for her to just leave without saying anything. Ingrid also has a rare lung problem that worsens when it's cold out, so it would be extremely unlikely that she would intentionally hike far away from her car that day. She also just wasn't packed to camp or be gone for an extended period of time. Her family has searched Tacoma, which is reportedly the highest point in the area, as well as San Antonio Mountain, but because it's now winter, the dangerous terrain has made it really difficult to continue searching by foot. I've attached a GoFundMe in my bio created for the family so that they can continue funding the search for Ingrid. They plan to conduct as many helicopter searches as they can with the funds. If you're local to New Mexico, please share this any way that you can. Right now, having her face out there is so important. Ingrid is described as 5'5", 120 pounds, and has brown hair and hazel eyes. If you have any information at all, please call the Sandoval Sheriff's Office at 505-867-7526. Kenny Veach disappeared after finding a mysterious cave near Area 51, and it's one of the creepiest missing person cases I've ever heard of. So Kenny was an avid hiker of 20 plus years and a YouTuber who would create videos of his solo hiking journeys in the deserts of Nevada and California. He became so comfortable and confident hiking alone that he would often camp for several days without a GPS, a compass, or a map. In June of 2014, Kenny came across a video titled "Son of an Area 51 Technician" and left a comment that would gain a lot of attention. Kenny detailed a scary experience he recently had after finding a mysterious hidden cave near Area 51, or more specifically, near the Nellis Air Force Base in the Mojave Desert. Kenny said that the entrance of the cave was shaped like a perfect capital M, but as soon as he got close to the entrance, he felt unusual vibrations throughout his entire body. He said the closer he got to the cave's entrance, the worse the vibrating got, and then an indescribable fear came over him. He couldn't explain it, but he was so scared that he ran out. In the comment, Kenny went on to say that he solo hikes across mountaintops that many people wouldn't dare to go, and that he's been in more caves than he can count. He said he plays with rattlesnakes for fun, but this particular cave was unlike anything he had ever encountered. His comment on this video kind of went viral, and a lot of people were pushing for him to go back and try to find the cave to document it. Almost every single comment was urging him to go back, all except for one that read, quote, "Do not go back there. If you find that cave entrance, do not go in. You won't get out." End quote. But this didn't stop Kenny, and on November 10th, 2014, he set out once again to try and find the M Cave. It was originally only supposed to be an overnight hike, so he kissed his girlfriend goodbye and told his family that he'd be back the next day. But Kenny disappeared that day, and he's never been seen again. When he never came back home, his girlfriend reported him missing, and a massive search was launched. Authorities began searching an abandoned vertical mine shaft that was in one of Kenny's recent videos, and there they found his cell phone. Several miles away, they also located Kenny's car. Other than this, no trace of Kenny has ever been found, and because of the nature of his disappearance, it sparked chilling conspiracy theories as to what could have happened to him. One theory is that Kenny became lost or injured and succumbed to the elements, or he could have possibly been killed by a wild animal. Another theory is that he accidentally fell down a mine shaft somewhere and just hasn't been found yet. But one terrifying theory that people have come up with is that the M Cave that Kenny found and was trying to locate again was the entrance to a secret government facility, and that his disappearance was due to him stumbling across government secrets in hopes of keeping him quiet. And of course, the biggest conspiracy theory that people have come up with is that Kenny disappeared after encountering aliens since the cave was near Area 51. But obviously, these are all just theories and have never been proven. A more realistic theory has been brought up by his girlfriend. She says that it's possible that Kenny died by suicide as he reportedly struggled with his mental health in the years leading up to his disappearance. She mentioned that he left behind his camera, so he obviously was not going on that hike to film anything as most people thought he was. This would make sense considering a few life changes before he went missing. Just the year prior, Kenny suddenly quit his job to become an inventor. He reportedly invented an improved version of a toilet paper holder, and he even submitted the concept to Shark Tank. Kenny also tried to sell his house, but under one odd condition. He demanded that the new owner had to hire him as a caretaker and continue to let him decorate the house in his own style. Because of this weird condition, he never had any offers. Regardless, it's now been 10 years, and Kenny's disappearance remains unsolved.
Oh yeah, one more thing. If y'all see me on Love Island, mind your fucking business, bitch. I'm trying to find love, bitch. Y'all had y'all motherfucking chance.
Did anyone else see that story of that lady on TikTok? Wait, let me explain. So this lady said that she's been married for 8 years and that her husband is deployed overseas all the way in Germany. She says that she barely sees her husband. He comes home like 2 or 3 times a year, and when he's home, he only stays for about 2 or 3 weeks. So for the last 2 years, she says she's been feeling real lonely, and she decided to go out and cheat on her husband. She said that she went and she had a one-night stand, and this one-night stand was so good that it turned into an every-night stand. And she recently found out she's pregnant. And clearly this is not her husband's because her husband's overseas, so the man that she's been sleeping with got her pregnant. So now, her and this dude have been messing with each other for 2 years, back and forth. Mind you, she has 3 kids with her husband. She said at first they were getting hotels and stuff, to keep her anonymous. But then, after 2 years, she got a little comfortable, and now she's allowed to go to his house. He's still not allowed to come to hers because, she got kids, and he don't got no kids. Usually she goes over there and, she's not really paying attention to what's in her house because she has no real feelings for this man. She just, got lonely. But one day as she's walking in, she decides to pay a little bit close attention to the pictures on his wall. And as she's looking over the pictures on her wall, guess who she sees? Her husband. So now she's freaking out because she's like, how is a picture of my husband and him in this frame on the wall? Of course, she starts panicking. She has to get to the bottom of this, but she doesn't know how to bring it up without saying, like, how do you know this man? Because this is my husband. So after a while, she decides, like, I'm just going to ask around, like, oh, who's this? Oh, that's my grandma. Oh, who that? That's my uncle. So who is this? Y'all would never believe what the man said. The man going to say, oh, that's my brother. She was thinking, like, there's no way because she's been married to him for 8 years and he's never been in none of the family functions. Like, she never even heard of her husband speak of him. So she asked, oh, is this from your dad's side? He said, yeah, it's from my dad's side. So that makes sense because, the dad got a whole bunch of other kids. So it makes sense to why, she never really seen him. But y'all, the man she's been sleeping with 2 years is her husband's brother. But the story doesn't stop there. So he's like, yeah, that's my brother. I'm real close with him. She's all confused. Like, He starts pulling out pictures. He pulls out a picture. He said, yeah. So she's like, oh, so is he married? He was like, yeah, he is. To his wife in Germany. Yeah, they got 2 kids over there. He has a nice little family in Germany. Y'all, why the man start pulling up pictures of her husband with his wife, his new wife in Germany, and their kids? Mind you, she's pregnant by this man, who she just found out is her husband's brother. She also just found out that her husband got a whole family in Germany. So now she don't know what to do because she's been cheating on her husband has clearly been cheating on her, and now there's a baby about to be involved. Hey, that was just a story I seen, but what would y'all do?
One of the most terrifying things to me is when someone vanishes into thin air with absolutely no logical explanation as to what happened to them, especially when they disappear in a short amount of time in an extremely short distance. I am a firm believer that people don't just disappear, but that's what happened to 20-year-old Ryan Stuka, and the circumstances surrounding his disappearance are just really bizarre, so let's talk about it. Ryan Stuka was just 1 month shy of his 21st birthday when he mysteriously disappeared on February 17th, 2018. He lived in Beaumont, Alberta, where the rest of his family lived. But on December 1st, 2017, he decided to move to Sun Peaks, which is a really tiny ski resort village in British Columbia. He had never left home before, but he was really excited for this move because he was moving with his best friend to go and do one of the things he loved most, which was snowboarding. He and his friend were going to spend the season snowboarding and working as lift operators at the Sun Peaks Village Ski Resort. And although he was a little nervous to leave home, he was really excited. He was only going to be there for a few months anyway, as he'd go back home to Alberta in the spring. But before he got the chance to go back home, he would disappear, leaving behind no clues. And what exactly happened that winter night has never been explained. So the day before Ryan disappeared, which was Friday, February 16th, he worked the full day and then went to his home in Sun Peaks, which he shared with a few roommates. Later that night, Ryan and a few of his friends/roommates went to a silent disco event that was being hosted at a local pub. And then after, they all went to a house party not far away located on Burfield Drive. A few hours would go by, everyone was having fun, and then at 2 a.m., one of Ryan's roommates got tired and decided to head home. They all lived just a short walk away from this house party, and it wasn't unusual for them to just walk home. A few minutes later, another one of Ryan's roommates decided to get up and leave the party, also heading home. And this roommate thought Ryan was right behind him. At 2:10 a.m., Ryan was seen standing up, and he was believed to have been putting on his coat and shoes to go home as well. But after this, Ryan vanished. This was the last time he was ever seen alive. He never made it home that night, and when he didn't show up for work the next day, his roommates and friends knew something was horribly wrong. Ryan never missed work, and the fact that he wasn't answering their calls and texts, they just knew something wasn't quite right. They tried looking at security footage and called everyone Ryan knew in the area as well as local hospitals, but nobody knew where Ryan was or what happened to him. It was at this point that his roommates called his parents to let him know that Ryan was missing, and then they reported him missing to the police at 8:47 p.m. His parents lived over 9 hours away, but when they heard Ryan was missing, they packed their bags and immediately took off for Sun Peaks. The Kamloops RCMP launched a massive search for Ryan involving tracking dogs, drones, infrared cameras, snowmobiles, and helicopters. And on top of police searching, Ryan's parents and hundreds of volunteers diligently searched the entire village. But absolutely no trace of Ryan was ever found. It's believed that Ryan left the house party that night and started to walk home. But the biggest question is what happened to him in that short distance? It wasn't unusual for Ryan to go out with his friends and socialize. And since he didn't know the area super well, he never just wandered off without them. So for him to just vanish off the face of the earth like this was scary and overall just very strange. At the beginning of the investigation, police thought maybe he had been drinking at the party and became too intoxicated, maybe passing out somewhere outside, which was obviously very time sensitive. Because the night Ryan went missing, the weather dropped to below -14 degrees Fahrenheit and had snowed about 8 inches. So if that was the case, and he did end up passing out somewhere outside, it seemed likely that he was just buried in snow somewhere along the route that he would have taken to get home. But after digging through the snow, and as time passed and all the snow melted, there were still no signs of Ryan. Here we are today, 7 years later, and not one single clue as to what happened to him has ever surfaced. Over the years though, there have been 3 main theories as to what could have happened to him. Theory number 1 is that he did end up getting lost in the woods after leaving the party that night. There is a good possibility that he was intoxicated and ended up getting lost since he wasn't extremely used to the area and died of exposure. But you would think that after all this time that something would have been found by now, like some of his remains or his clothing or any of his personal belongings that he had on him that night. But not even one piece of his clothing was found. One thing that was brought up about this theory is that he could have been attacked by a wild animal after leaving the party. But again, there was no evidence left behind of anything, let alone an animal attack. You'd think that if he was attacked by an animal that some blood would be left behind, or drag marks, or even ripped clothing, but there was absolutely nothing. Another theory is that he was met with foul play to some some extent. Some people believe that after leaving the party that night that he could have been a victim of a hit and run. And after Googling hit and run cases in Sun Peak, I'm honestly kind of shocked how many there were in the last 10 years, so this does seem like a potential possibility. The theory is that he was hit by a car accidentally, and whoever hit him moved his body elsewhere, either off the mountain or out of Sun Peaks altogether. But again, you'd think that there would be some evidence of this in the area, like tire marks or blood left behind, but there was nothing. The last theory is that something happened to Ryan at the house party that night, either accidentally or on purpose, and it was covered up in some way. Some people suspect that Ryan could have overdosed accidentally in the house, and the people at the party helped cover it up. Other people believe that he could have had his life taken in that house by another person, and although there isn't much known about the house party that night, it was searched. So if something truly did happen there, I'm sure evidence would have been found by now. Kind of adding onto this theory is what a man who was staying at a home near Ryan's house had to say. This man said that on the night Ryan disappeared, he heard a guy who was pretty angry yelling to get in the effing car. Now, this could be anything. I know when it's super cold out, I hate when people take a long time getting into the car, so this doesn't sound super unusual to me, but it could also mean something more sinister. And then there's what a retired RCMP investigator had to say when investigating Ryan's disappearance. He initially thought that Ryan just accidentally got lost and died of exposure, but then he interviewed one of Ryan's friends, and that interview changed his mind a little bit. The investigator said that this friend was extremely nervous and acting really strange, and although this information was given to authorities, nothing ever came of it. This theory that something happened at the house party and everyone helped cover it up doesn't seem very likely to me, just based on the fact that when you have that many people in on something, someone at some point is going to say something, and 7 years have passed without a word. It is clear though that something bad happened to Ryan, as there's been no activity on his cell phone, social media, or bank accounts since that fateful night. The Kamloops RCMP hasn't ruled out foul play, but they also haven't found anything criminally suspicious, or anything at all for that matter. They also said that there's no evidence that Ryan ever left the Sun Peaks area. So as time passes, Ryan's case is still frozen in time, and with a lack of any evidence, it's left many wondering what really happened to him. There's currently a $25,000 reward for any information leading to Ryan's whereabouts. His family has gone on to make this Facebook page where they continue to post updates and any information about the case. It kind of created this movement where little green dinosaurs with some of Ryan's information attached to it have been placed all around the world. When people see them, they often take pictures of it and post it to the Facebook group. And in a way, it's a way for Ryan to travel all over the world and touch so many people. The green dinosaur stemmed from Ryan loving dinosaurs as a kid. His mom said that when he was little, they all played a game together where they had to guess the type of dinosaur. In one of his mom's first ever posts on the Facebook page, she said, quote, "Ryan, wherever you are, let's talk about dinosaurs." And that just breaks my heart. The not knowing is literally devastating, and his family just deserves answers. I just can't fathom that one second you're living your life and the next, everything changes. These are some of Ryan's characteristics and what he was last seen wearing. If you have any information about his disappearance, please contact the number on the screen.
The night I started believing in the paranormal. Hi y'all, I'm watching the most recent podcast and heard y'all were looking for some spooky ghost stories, and I've got one that still creeps me out to this day. Sorry in advance for the long post, but I want to get all the details in. LOL. Now, just to preface, this story happened a few years ago when I was still in high school. I grew up in a small town, so it was often hard for us young, angsty teens to find things to do. Me, now 21 female, and my best friend, also 21 female, our usual Friday night consisted of driving around aimlessly trying to find something to do. This night, it was me, my best friend, who I'll call Cindy, Cindy's boyfriend, Aaron, and Aaron's best friend, Zach. Now, on to the story. We were doing our usual routine of driving around the nearby big city when Aaron decided to call up his other friend who lived nearby. Now, this friend I'd never met before, but Aaron said he lived in this small mountain town close to where we were driving. I'd never heard of this town, but it is known for its history in being an old copper mining town. The friend didn't answer, but we decided to drive up that way anyways, as the friend had a cool car Aaron and Zach wanted to look at. Big car guys. We start driving up there, and mind you, it's close to 2 a.m. at this point. We had driven on dark roads throughout this entire night, and the vibes were all good. We're driving on this dark, barren road when we pass under a bridge. Immediately, I become overwhelmed by this eerie feeling. Something just felt off. I thought it was just me experiencing this, as everyone else was talking and joking about, so I brushed it off. By the time we get up to the town, Cindy was passed out in the passenger seat. I was sat behind Cindy, and Zach was sat behind Aaron, who was driving. The second we start to see houses, we all collectively agree that something about this town was just off. The streets looked impeccably clean and polished. The the sidewalks all completely smooth, as if the concrete had just been laid. I had made an offhand comment about how it felt like we were transported to another time. The boys in the car collectively agreed with me, all of us acknowledging how it felt like we had passed through a portal straight to the 1930s. We continued on the drive, making jokes in an attempt to lighten the strange atmosphere we had stumbled upon. At this point, I chalked it up to the dark night and the fact that the whole town was likely asleep. Then we see the park. Now here's the thing about this park. It wasn't a full-on park, literally just a plot of grass with huge ass trees. The road allowed you to loop completely around the park, and it was absolutely empty when we first arrived. Aaron makes a comment about the park, saying he had taken pictures of his car in it before. Then he decides to drive around the park and show us where the photos were taken. As we begin the loop around this park, I feel this creepy feeling begin to intensify. The best way to describe it is it was like a heavy weight pushing down on the air in the car. At this point, it's close to summer, so all the windows are down as we're cruising along. Once we get close to the end of the loop, I spot a couple of deer outside my window. This was the first and only sign of life we saw the entire time we were there. No people, no other animals, no cars, just 3 deer. Aaron pulls over so we can get a better look at them and then decides to call his friend again to see if he would answer. At this point, I'm watching these deer and trying to distract myself from this seemingly unwarranted anxiety I was feeling. While Aaron was on the phone, Cindy was still passed out, and Zach is staring out his open window, which faced the park. Not long into us being parked here, does Zach start to yell and frantically try to roll up his window. Both Aaron and I were shocked by Zach's sudden screaming, and both go look at whatever had freaked Zach out so much. When I look out Zach's window, I saw something that I still cannot explain to this day. There, sitting beside one of the large trees, was a pure white figure. So white it looked like it was glowing. I got a pretty good glimpse at this figure, and it almost seemed blurry, but you could clearly make out the shape of a hooded person. It appeared to be kneeling with its head bowed, almost like it was praying. At this point, Zach is screaming for Aaron to get us the fuck out of there. All I could do was freeze in fear and stare at this figure sat alone in the park.
She carried a black trash bag in both hands, walked towards the dumpsters, threw it in, got back in her car, and drove off. But inside that trash bag wasn't only trash. Inside was her newborn baby, wrapped in a towel, umbilical cord still attached, left in a dumpster. Big warning at the beginning of this video, we're talking about a child. You guys already know what it is. Your mental health is #1 priority, always has been, always will be. If you think that listening to this is going to harm your mental health in any way, shape, or form, I mean it when I say skip this video. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in my next one. I love you. Alexis Avila is from Hobbs, New Mexico. That's where she lived with her family. She's the baby of the family and has 2 older siblings, 1 sister, 1 brother. And from what I could find, her childhood was completely what people would call normal and happy. She was a happy kid. She was loved. She was supported. As a little girl, she played sports. She got along with her siblings, got along with everyone at school. It wasn't until she really grew up and got into her teenage years that she began having a hard time. I think you could say that a lot of her behavior was what most people would consider to be normal teenage behavior. She had a lot of big mood swings. Her mood was completely unpredictable. She was also the type to feel everything very intensely, to feel her emotions very deeply. As a teenager, she also began pushing her parents' boundaries, arguing often, questioning them, and just pushing their buttons really, and in turn that caused her relationship with her parents to be pretty rocky. She definitely was the kind of girl who leaned a lot more on her friends than she did her family. She would open up to her friends about what she had going on in her school life, her love life, her social life, all the things, but when it came to her parents, she wasn't likely to open up to them really at all. And I think at times that left her parents feeling quite distant from her, and all of that isn't completely unheard of, but there were little things that made her parents question if there was something deeper about her behavior going on, or with her behavior. And they found out that there was. Alexis was diagnosed with bipolar 1 disorder. Unfortunately, she wouldn't be officially diagnosed with that until later on down the line. So even though the effects of having bipolar disorder were very much showing through her personality when she was just starting off in high school, they didn't know what it was, so her diagnosis was left untreated. In March of 2020, Alexis was 16 years old and going into her sophomore year of high school when she switched schooling from in-person to online, because we all know what happened in 2020. And for a person like Alexis, who already had a hard time bonding with her parents,
being locked in her house 24/7 with limited ways to distract herself was going to prove to be very tough. By the time she got back into school in person, she was a junior in high school, and she got into a relationship with a 16-year-old boy named Steven. And in April of 2021, the couple found out that they were pregnant. I guess they took a pregnancy test as some sort of joke. I don't know what they were doing, but it was supposed to be a joke, but they saw that they actually were pregnant and they panicked. Alexis never wanted to be a teen mom. She freaked out, he freaked out, but then that was that. They find out that Alexis is growing a human being inside of her, and what do? They freak out for a few minutes and then they forget about it, I guess. Or they pretend to, because they were really acting like it was no big deal. Maybe showing a defense mechanism, I don't know, but they literally did not want to talk about it. One of Alexis's friend who knew her from freshman year would later say that she had heard her mention a pregnancy, saying, quote, "I heard her talk about being pregnant around late September, early October. She never expressed that it was a bad thing that she was pregnant," end quote. Although apparently her and Steven never talked about it. I would like to think that they did, but I really don't think they did. And in Alexis's head, she always knew that keeping the baby was not going to be an option. She wasn't ready to become a mom in any way, shape, or form. She also wasn't ready or willing to tell her family, and the very few friends that she did tell, she also let know that she wasn't planning on keeping it. A couple of months passed, and then there is trouble in paradise. The puppy love that was once there between Alexis and Steven was no longer, and it became so bad between them, to the point that police officers got involved, and Steven was not allowed to go to Alexis' house ever again. This sent Alexis into a chaotic, unstable state of mind. She was depressed, she was furious with Steven, but then she was standing up for him. She would get mad at him, but then she would get mad at her mom, and then the anger would just turn into sadness. It was bad all around, and Alexis ended up running away, but when she returned home, she just completely shut down, still not sharing with her parents the fact that she was pregnant, and still ignoring that situation altogether. And by August of 2021, Alexis and Steven called it quits on their relationship for good. That's also when she tells him the very, very sad news that she had lost the baby. Was that true? No. And was she lying to the baby's father? 1,000,000% yes. And by the end of 2021, only getting closer and closer to her due date, Alexis had managed to somehow, someway successfully hide her pregnancy from everyone around her. She was still ignoring it. She wasn't doing absolutely anything to address it, nothing to take care of herself or her baby. And according to her parents, they did notice that she was putting on weight, but they didn't really think much of it. She found out that she was pregnant in April of 2021. On January 7th of 2022, Alexis Avila gave birth on her own at home in secret in the bathroom. She woke up in the middle of the night because she was experiencing severe pain, went to the toilet, and delivered her baby. Did she wake anyone up? No. Did she tell anyone? No. Instead, the following morning, she wrapped up her newborn baby boy in a towel, grabbed a black trash bag full of trash, and put both the bag of trash and her baby wrapped in the towel in the back of her car. She drove around for a little while until she ended up driving to a big dumpster in a parking lot of a JCPenney, and then she grabbed the bag full of trash, opened it up, grabbed her baby wrapped in the towel, placed the baby in the trash bag on top of the trash, and tied it sealed tightly. Then she pulled up right next to the dumpster and tossed the closed bag with her baby in the trash, dumped it, and drove off. It's sick. It's vile. It's so disturbing. Not to mention, New Mexico has a safe haven law, meaning that under the law, a parent can surrender an infant that is 90 days or younger at a hospital, at a fire station, at any law enforcement agency. They could drop off the baby, no questions asked, and they would be protected from criminal prosecution for abandonment. Alexis could have dropped off her baby at any one of these locations to give him a chance, to give a loving family a chance at having a baby, which a lot of people would consider to be a miracle. But did she do that? No. She treated her baby as nothing more than a piece of trash. Alexis drove off, went home, and continued acting like nothing had ever happened. However, at 8 p.m. that same night, a group of 3 people, dumpster divers, went to the same dumpster in that JCPenney parking lot, and they were there to dig through the trash to see if they could find anything of value. They're digging through the trash when they hear crying, and they assume that it's coming from an animal. They keep digging until they find the black bag, pull it out, and that's when they make the horrifying discovery of finding the newborn baby boy, who had been inside of that trash bag in the cold in the dumpsters for well over 5 hours or more at this point. And as you can imagine, they were sick to their stomachs. The girl in the group immediately picked up the baby and held him in her arms. He was still alive, luckily somehow, because it was freezing outside, and he was clearly very weak but still crying. He was cold to the touch, the umbilical cord was still attached, and one of the guys called 911 to report what they just found. It is so sad. It is so incredibly sad. When paramedics arrived, the baby boy was still breathing, but he was struggling to be able to because he was so cold. His skin had completely turned blue and purple by that point. He was showing signs of hypothermia and low oxygen. He also had a cut on his head, assuming that that was from when the bag was thrown and his little head made contact with a metal dumpster. The baby was rushed to the hospital, and the doctors tried everything in their power to make sure that this little baby boy made it through the night, while a different group of officers worked on identifying who had done this. It did not take them long to identify Alexis Avila because her name was in a piece of trash that was found in the trash bag that the baby was found in. And they also quickly got a hold of the CCTV footage and only further confirmed who she was by running the license plate number. They showed up to her house, her parents answered the door and said that Alexis could not come to the door because she was feeling really sick and she was in bed. But officers were not having it. They forced her to get out of bed and get to the station for questioning. And the interrogation of that is really something. Alexis is really something, and I mean that in a negative way. She does say the story of giving birth in the bathroom. She does tell him that, but she says that she found out that she was pregnant yesterday, as in one day before giving birth. Lie number one, they say, interesting, a friend of yours actually told us that you were pregnant back in March and that you told this friend named Walker. And Alexis goes, no, I don't know a Walker. Lie number two, she says that after giving birth, she was very, very scared and she didn't know what to do, but she does admit to putting her baby in the trash and then in the dumpster, saying, quote, I put it in the bag, I took it to the car, I drove around and I just didn't know what to do and I just put it in there, end quote. Alexis did try to defend herself by saying, quote, I'm the baby, end quote, and repeatedly stating that she had just turned 18 as if that was reason enough to excuse her actions. Stephen, the father of the baby, was made aware of the situation, and you could imagine the shock on his face when he found out that Alexis had lied about losing the baby. But by a true miracle, the baby boy made it through the night. He needed a ton of love and care and attention because he was so close to not surviving, but he did. And he was placed in the custody of Stephen, and him alongside of his family had been taking care of him. And it warms my heart to be able to tell you guys and to know that the little boy will grow up and hopefully live a very long and happy and healthy life. And I hope that he's able to accomplish every single dream he ever has. Alexis Avila was charged with 2 charges, and she was taken to court where again she made a fool out of herself by trying to say she didn't know any better because she was freshly 18. In my opinion, it was clear that she showed absolutely no remorse. If anything, she felt bad for herself and not her child. She pled not guilty but was found guilty and sentenced to 16 years in prison. But guess what? Her lawyers appealed. And she was let out on bail in 2023 pending her appeal. But now, on Monday, November 17th, the New Mexico Court of Appeals ruled that her conviction still stands and that she is to be sent back into custody. So that was earlier in this month. The latest update that I could find was from an attorney general making a statement that reads, quote, my office alongside District Attorney Deanna Luce prosecuted this case, and we are extremely fortunate that the child survived this horrific ordeal. My office will now focus on providing the support necessary to get Mrs. Avila remanded back into custody, end quote. I'm not sure how long the process takes. I hope that she is back in custody as we speak because I think that she deserves to be. Evil, straight up evil. And it's so sad to think that there are human beings in the world that do this. That is all I have for today's case. Thank you guys for spending time with me today. I hope you guys are having the best day. If not, go do something to make it the best day. Make somebody happy, and I will see you in my next video. Massive kiss on the forehead to every single one of you.